The gravel crunched under Ayla's small feet as she walked the narrow road that wound like a ribbon through the hills outside Pineville. Her school bag bounced softly against her back with each step. She was alone, just like she liked it. No noise, no people. Only the sound of wind pushing through tall grass and the occasional buzz of a distant tractor from the farms nearby. She hummed quietly to herself, picking a tune from a cartoon she couldn't quite remember. The air was thick with the smell of warm earth, wildflowers, and summer's fading heat. Her house was still a good 20-minute walk away, but she didn't mind. She had done this walk hundreds of times. Then, a sound that didn't belong. It was sharp, raw, a scream, but not human. Ayla stopped mid-step. The noise came again, high-pitched, panicked, and full of pain. A whimper followed. Her heartbeat skipped. Something was hurt. She scanned the fields, squinting against the setting sun. Her eyes landed on a patch of tall weeds and brambles just off the road near a drainage ditch. There was movement. Something was thrashing weakly in the underbrush. Most children would have backed away, called for help. Run home. But Ayla, only 8 years old, had always felt a strange pull toward wounded things, birds with bent wings, beetles flipped on their backs, even worms stranded on hot sidewalks. Her mother used to call her a rescuer of the lost, so, without thinking, Ayla stepped off the road. Thorns scratched her legs as she pushed through the tall grass, ignoring the stinging. The sound was clearer now, the cries fainter, as if the creature's strength was draining fast. She knelt, brushed aside the weeds, and her breath caught in her throat. A small golden retriever pup, no older than a few months, lay crumpled in the ditch. His fur was soaked with blood near his hind leg, which was bent at an unnatural angle. One eye was swollen shut. He looked up at her, barely able to lift his head, and let out a sound so weak it made her chest ache. He tried to move, but couldn't. Ayla stared, frozen for a second. Her mind raced. Who did this? Was it a car, a coyote? Was he going to die? No collar, no tag. No one around. She looked up the road. Not a single car in sight. Her heart pounded harder now, not from fear, but from urgency. The nearest house was too far. Her own home was in the opposite direction, and she had no phone. If she left him here, he'd be gone by morning. She dropped her bag, yanked off her jacket, and crawled into the ditch. The pup whimpered louder as she slid her arms under his fragile body. His blood soaked through the sleeves of her uniform as she carefully lifted him into her lap. His head fell against her chest. She could feel him trembling. "It's okay," she whispered, cradling him tightly. "I've got you." The vet's office. 4 miles away, she remembered from the posters at school. Ayla stood up, now holding the full weight of the injured pup in her arms. He wasn't light, maybe 15 or 20 pounds, but she didn't care. She adjusted her grip and took her first step forward, off the dirt and onto the road. No cars, no grown-ups. No one to stop her, just a determined little girl, carrying a broken dog into the fading sun. The wind picked up, tugging at her hair. Her arms already ached. She blinked the sting of tears from her eyes and kept walking. And so began the journey that would not only save a life, but shake an entire town to its core. The road stretched on like a winding ribbon of silence, and Ayla was just a tiny figure. On it, arms full and heart racing. The dog's shallow breathing was warm against her chest. Every few steps she glanced down at him, still alive but fading fast. She didn't know his name, so she whispered one. "Rusty," she murmured. "That's what I'll call you. Just hold on, okay?" Rusty didn't respond, but the flicker in his eye, just a tiny twitch, made her keep going. Her jacket, now wrapped around his bleeding leg, was already soaked through. It wasn't just warm from his body, it was sticky with blood. Ayla tried not to look at it too much. Her stomach twisted every time she caught sight of the deep gash in his hind leg. She remembered watching a movie once about a soldier carrying a wounded friend through the jungle. He looked so strong, so brave. She wasn't strong. Her arms were already aching. Her legs felt heavier with every step. But when she looked down and saw Rusty's head nestled against her, she kept going. There were no sidewalks out here, just gravel shoulders and tall weeds. Every time a car passed in the opposite direction, she moved a little off the road. None of them stopped. Most probably didn't even notice the little girl carrying a limp bundle. But Ayla didn't waste energy waving or yelling. Deep down, she didn't expect help. She had learned early that sometimes the people who were supposed to notice didn't. One car finally slowed, a silver sedan with a cracked bumper. A man rolled down the window, frowning. "You okay, kid?" he asked. "I'm fine," she replied quickly, shifting Rusty higher in her arms. He looked at her suspiciously. "What's that you're carrying?" "A dog. He's hurt. I'm taking him to the vet." The man's frown deepened. "You sure you don't want a ride?" Something in his tone made Ayla uneasy. Maybe it was the way he looked her over. Too long. Maybe it was just instinct. "No, thank you," she said firmly, backing up a step. He paused, then sighed. "Suit yourself." The car rolled away. She let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Her mind raced. What if she had gotten in? What if he wasn't nice? She remembered what her mom had told her 100 times. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Now, she was alone again. The second mile was the worst. Her muscles burned. Sweat dripped down her forehead. She had to stop 3 times to shift Rusty from one arm to the other. Once, she almost dropped him. His body slipped through her grip as her left arm gave out. She managed to catch him just in time, breathing hard as she collapsed to her knees in the dirt. Rusty whimpered. She felt his chest rise and fall faster. Panic swelled in her throat. What if she was too late? What if he died in her arms? She blinked hard and stood again. "No, you're not dying. Not today. Not while I'm still standing." She remembered the way her dad used to say that about their old lawnmower when it broke. "Not quitting on me today." Except this wasn't a lawnmower. This was a life, a real one. The sky turned from orange to deep purple. The sun was melting behind the hills. Streetlights were still far off. The shadows were stretching longer. But so was her resolve. She clutched Rusty tighter, adjusted the blood-soaked jacket once again and pushed forward, step after step. No ride, no rest, no rescue. Just a little girl with dirt on her shoes, fire in her chest, and a promise in her heart. "You're not going to die alone." What she didn't know was that someone had begun to notice, and he was following her from a distance. Ayla's fingers were going numb. The weight of Rusty in her arms, once manageable, now felt like lifting a heavy sack of wet cement. Every step took more effort. Her knees trembled, her shoulders ached, her breath came in shallow bursts, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. Rusty's head lolled now, and she couldn't tell if he was still awake. His breathing was slow, but it was there. She kept checking, pressing her cheek to his fur just to feel the rhythm of his chest. It was faint, but it kept her going. The road curved around a hill, and for a terrifying moment, Ayla thought she had taken the wrong way. There were no signs, no familiar landmarks, just silence and shadows. She looked up and whispered, "Please be the right way, please." Then, far ahead, she saw the glint of a street lamp. Her eyes lit up. Town. She was close. But close wasn't. Close enough. Her legs gave out. She collapsed on the side of the road, half in the dirt, half in the grass. Rusty rolled slightly in her lap, and Ayla bit back a cry as a sharp rock dug into her palm. Her arms were shaking uncontrollably now. Her back throbbed from the strain. She wanted to scream. Not from fear, but from pain, from frustration, from knowing she had no choice but to get back up. Tears burned in her eyes, but she wouldn't let them fall. "You're okay," she whispered hoarsely to Rusty. "You're okay." She wasn't sure if she was telling him or herself. She took a deep breath, counted to 3, and somehow she stood again. Her body screamed at her to stop, but she didn't listen. She'd carried him this far. Quitting now would mean everything. Every painful step meant nothing. And Ayla refused to believe that. Behind her, just beyond the curve of the hill, the old farmer's truck had come to a slow crawl. Inside sat Mr. Denzel, a quiet man who rarely left his barn after dark. He'd spotted the girl about a mile back, walking like she was on a mission. The first time he saw her, he figured maybe she was just carrying a bag or a blanket. But when he saw the blood, he'd kept driving slowly behind her, not wanting to scare her. Now as he watched her struggle back to her feet, something inside him twisted. He could see the strain, the pain. Yet she didn't call out for help. She didn't flag him down. She just kept walking. "She's got more grit than most grown men I know," he muttered, almost in disbelief, but he didn't honk. Didn't yell. He just followed carefully, like a silent guardian making sure she didn't collapse for good. Back on the road, Ayla focused on counting her steps. 10 at a time. 1, 2, 3. She whispered the numbers like a mantra, her breath sinking with them. It helped distract from the fire in her muscles, from the aching cramp in her side. The only thing louder than her own breathing was the thud of her heart in her ears. She remembered her teacher once saying, "True bravery isn't loud. It's quiet and hard. It's doing the right thing when nobody's watching." Well, nobody was watching now. Not really, and she was doing it anyway. Half an hour later, the lights of Pineville finally appeared, blurry and soft at first, then sharper with every step. Gas station signs, a diner, a few cars, civilization. But Ayla didn't. Slow down, her focus was razor sharp now. Tunnel vision. The vet's office was just 2 more turns. 2 more. She whispered to Rusty, "We're almost there. Just a little more. You made it, buddy. We both did." What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that the real shock, the part that would shake the entire town, hadn't even begun yet. The neon sign for Pineville Animal Clinic flickered softly in the dusk like a beacon. Ayla's eyes locked onto it, and her legs almost buckled from relief. Her arms were trembling so violently now she could barely hold. "Rusty, steady." She turned the corner, clutching the dog tighter. The clinic was closed, the lights inside were dim, the doors locked. Her stomach sank. "No. No, please," she whispered. She banged on the glass with her elbow, her voice finally breaking loose from the iron grip she'd held on her emotions. "Please. Someone help. Please, he's dying." The barking of a dog from inside echoed back. Then footsteps. The side door opened, and a tall man in green scrubs stepped out with a confused look. Dr. Hensley, the town vet, had been finishing paperwork when he heard the cries. "What the—" He started, then froze when he saw her. A tiny girl, drenched in sweat and dust, blood covering her arms and jacket, standing barefoot, her shoes long abandoned on the roadside. "I found him," she choked out. "He was bleeding. I walked here. I didn't know what else to do." Dr. Hensley rushed over, taking Rusty gently from her arms. The moment her burden left her, Ayla's legs gave out, and she dropped to the pavement, gasping for breath. The vet saw the gaping wound on the pup's leg and paled. "He's in shock. I need to get him inside." "Hold on, little guy," he said quickly, running through the clinic doors with Rusty. The nurse inside called out, "Get the emergency kit and saline." Ayla lay on the sidewalk outside, too exhausted to cry. Her body ached in ways she didn't know were possible. Her arms felt like rubber. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, desperate breaths. But she didn't faint. Not yet. She had to know he was okay. That's when Mr. Denzel pulled up in his rusted pickup. He'd watched the entire thing, from the girl pounding on the glass to the vet racing into the clinic. He stepped out slowly, his worn boots crunching on gravel, and approached Ayla. He knelt beside her, unsure of what to say. "Little lady," he said gently, "I've been watching you walk with that pup for 1.5 miles. Why didn't you flag me down?" Ayla looked up at him, eyes glassy. "Didn't know if I could trust you," she whispered. Mr. Denzel didn't take offense. He nodded. "Smart girl." He stood again, looked through the glass doors where the vet was working feverishly, and then pulled out his old flip phone. For once he knew what he had to do. He called his niece, who worked at the Pineville Post. "Yeah, you better get down here," he said. "Bring a camera. There's a story here, and the whole dang town needs to hear it." Inside the clinic, Dr. Hensley fought the clock. Rusty had lost a lot of blood. His temperature was low, but as he cleaned the wound and started an IV, he kept glancing toward the lobby where Ayla sat curled up in a blanket, still waiting. "She walked 4 miles, he muttered to the nurse. 4 miles with that pup in her arms. That girl saved his life." Back outside, a small crowd began to form. First a neighbor, then 2 women who'd seen the commotion from the diner across the street. Word was spreading. A reporter arrived 20 minutes later and snapped a photo of Ayla sitting on the floor with Rusty's blood still on her clothes, her small arms wrapped around her knees. It went online before midnight. By morning, Pineville would no longer be the sleepy little town it had always been, because a girl no taller than a fire hydrant had just lit a fire in everyone's hearts, and it was only the beginning. Ayla barely slept that night. The warmth of the clinic's blanket around her shoulders did little to calm the storm inside her chest. She kept thinking about Rusty, if he'd be okay, if she had done enough. The memories of the walk played, on repeat in her mind, the pain, the silence, the weight of him in her arms. But the most surprising thing was what she hadn't expected, the flood of attention that came the next morning. Her phone, a small hand-me-down from her mom, buzzed non-stop with messages. Her school inbox filled with texts from classmates who had heard about her story. Even neighbors she'd never spoken to before stopped her on the street. At breakfast, her mother looked at her wide-eyed, holding a printed article from the local newspaper. The headline blared, "Little Girl's Courage Saves Injured Dog, Town in Awe." Ayla read the story aloud. The words felt surreal. Ayla walked 4 miles carrying an injured puppy to the Pineville Animal Clinic, defying exhaustion and pain to save his life. Residents and officials alike are calling her an inspiration. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she whispered, pulling Ayla into a tight hug. But not everyone was kind. At school, some kids whispered and stared. "Did you hear? She carried that dog all the way." Some cheered quietly. Others just looked skeptical. A few even joked about her being a show-off. Ayla ignored it all. She had no time for doubts, because her story was about more than just a dog. It was about fighting when you think you can't. Meanwhile, on social media, the story had exploded. The reporter's photo of Ayla clutching Rusty was everywhere, shared thousands of times on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, with hashtags like Dr. Pineville Hero and Little Girl Big Heart trending overnight. Comments poured in, from strangers across the country, even the world, praising her bravery, sending wishes for Rusty's recovery, and pledging donations to the local animal shelter. The mayor of Pineville even sent a message to the clinic. "We need to honor this brave girl. She's the heart of our community." Ayla didn't understand the fuss. To her it was just something she had to do. But the day's biggest surprise came when Dr. Hensley called her mother from the clinic. "Rusty's going to pull through," he said, smiling over the phone. "Thanks to Ayla, his chances are good. She saved his life." Ayla's mother passed the phone to her. "Thank you," Ayla whispered into the receiver. "I just wanted to help him." Dr. Hensley's voice was warm. "You did more than that. You reminded us all how courage looks." That night, Ayla sat by Rusty's kennel, watching him sleep peacefully for the first time since she found him. His leg was bandaged, and the pulse of a tiny heartbeat echoed in her chest. She touched his soft fur gently. "You made it, Rusty. We made it." Outside, the town buzzed with news of the little girl who had carried a wounded dog for miles, and of the unbreakable spirit that refused to give up. And as the sun set over Pineville, Ayla's journey was just beginning. The news of Ayla's heroic journey spread through Pineville like wildfire, sparking a wave of emotion that few could have predicted. Local shops hung posters honoring her courage. The school principal announced a special assembly to recognize her bravery. Even the town's mayor invited her family to a community event celebrating heroes, big and small. But amid the celebrations, something curious began to emerge. Rusty wasn't just any stray puppy. During his treatment, Dr. Hensley found clues. That puzzled him. A faint but distinct tattoo under the fur near Rusty's ear, a mark used by a nearby breeder to identify animals, and small traces of a unique medication in his system, one not usually prescribed by local vets. The breeder was well known for raising purebred dogs, but had recently come under scrutiny after several dogs went missing. The police had quietly launched an investigation but lacked leads. Now Rusty's appearance at the edge of Pineville reopened questions. Had Rusty been abandoned? Was he a victim of something darker? When Mr. Denzel heard the news, he offered what little help he could. "I know the back roads better than anyone," he said. Maybe I can find where he came from. Kayla's mother, hesitant but hopeful, agreed to let Mr. Denzel join the search. Together, they began to piece together Rusty's story, talking to neighbors, checking old barns, and following tips. Along the way, they uncovered whispers of late-night trucks, strange noises, and frightened animals. The town's quiet life had been hiding secrets. Meanwhile, Ayla and Rusty's bond grew stronger. Each day she visited the clinic, her presence a soothing comfort to the injured dog. Rusty wagged his tail at the sight of her, even managing a weak bark when she arrived. It wasn't just a rescue anymore, it was friendship. At school, Ayla became more than just the dog girl. She was a symbol of hope. Kids who once ignored her now sought her out, eager to hear her story firsthand. Teachers praised her resilience and empathy, but Ayla never forgot the real reason she did it. One afternoon, as she sat beside Rusty, she whispered softly, "We're going to find out who did this, and we'll make sure it never happens again." Her determination inspired even the adults around her. Pineville was beginning to rally, not just behind a little girl and a dog, but around a cause. The town's newspaper ran a follow-up article. Rusty's journey reveals town's dark corners and community's strength. The headline caught everyone's attention. People who had been silent started talking. Witnesses came forward. Volunteers joined the search. Ayla's courage had sparked something bigger than anyone imagined, and for the first time, the town felt united, ready to face its shadows together. But just as hope bloomed, a chilling discovery was made. Someone was watching. Someone who didn't want the truth to come out. The next chapter of Ayla's story wasn't just about bravery, it was about danger. The first sign something was wrong came 3 days after the newspaper article broke. Ayla and her mother returned from the clinic late one evening, the sky dimming into a hazy purple. Rusty, now strong enough to walk a little, wagged his tail from the back seat. They were halfway up their driveway when her mother suddenly stopped the car. The garage door, usually shut tight, was cracked open. Ayla's mom's hands tightened on the wheel. "Stay here," she whispered. Ayla watched as her mother stepped out slowly, phone in hand, but after a tense minute she waved Ayla forward. Nothing was missing. Nothing seemed touched. Still, her mom locked every door that night, twice. It was the start of something. The next morning, Mr. Denzel found fresh tire marks by the old woods road, close to the area where Ayla had first found Rusty. That path hadn't been driven in years. "Someone's been back there," he told the sheriff. "Someone who doesn't want to be found." Sheriff Lane, skeptical at first, finally agreed to assign a deputy to patrol the area. But something in his gut told him this was no coincidence. The town had been too quiet for too long, and now one girl's courage had stirred things up. Then came the note. Folded inside Ayla's locker at UOA school. No name, no handwriting, just 6 chilling words scribbled in black ink. "You should have left the dog." Ayla's breath caught in her throat. Her fingers trembled as she read it again. Her teacher noticed her pale face and quickly called her mother. The police dusted the note for prints. Nothing, it could have been a prank. Kids being cruel, or it could have been something much worse. Still, Ayla refused to back down. "I'm not afraid of whoever did this," she told her mom that night. "They're afraid of being found out." Rusty barked quietly beside her, sensing her fear, but also her strength. At the same time, Mr. Denzel and Dr. Hensley made progress. With the help of a rescue group and old vet records, they traced Rusty's tattoo to an unregistered breeder just outside Pineville, someone operating illegally, off the books. The name, Jeremiah Kane. He had a small patch of land deep in the woods hidden behind abandoned barns. On paper, he didn't exist. No license, no records, but whispers in the dog rescue community hinted at worse. Stolen animals, illegal sales, and worse still, fights. That's when Ayla's story took a shocking turn. A woman from 3 towns over recognized Rusty in one of the shared photos online. She messaged Dr. Hensley, claiming the pup matched one she had lost nearly 6 months ago, taken from her backyard in a mysterious break-in. More families came forward, one after another, all describing similar disappearances, all tied to the Region around Pineville. The pieces clicked into place. Rusty hadn't just been lucky to survive, he'd escaped something truly evil. And now, thanks to Ayla, people were finally seeing it. The sheriff got a warrant. A raid was planned, but the night before it was set to happen, someone set fire to one of the old barns on the outskirts of Kane's land. Flames lit up the trees for miles. It was a warning, or an attempt to destroy evidence. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but the message was clear. Someone was watching. Someone was desperate, and Ayla? She was no longer just a brave little girl who saved a dog. She was a threat, yet she stood tall, hand resting gently on Rusty's head, as Pineville prepared for the storm. The barn fire lit up Pineville's sky. Like a flare, one last desperate act from someone who knew time was running out. As smoke drifted across the trees and sirens screamed into the night, Ayla stood on her porch, arms wrapped tightly around Rusty. His ears were perked, tail stiff. "They know we're close," her mum whispered, worry shadowing her face. But they're the ones who should be afraid. The next morning, the sheriff didn't wait. With evidence mounting and public pressure growing, the raid on Jeremiah Kane's compound began just after sunrise. A line of police cruisers rolled quietly down the dirt road, their tires kicking up clouds of dust. Deputies moved quickly, surrounding the hidden property behind tall fences and rusted-out sheds. What they found shocked even the most seasoned officers. Cages, dozens of them, some still holding weak, frightened dogs, others empty, their metal bars twisted and blackened by the night's fire. There were medical supplies, injection vials, ropes, shock collars, and records. Crude notebooks filled with names, prices, and chilling notations. Kane was caught trying to flee in a beat-up truck, his license plate covered in mud. He didn't get far. Later that day, the sheriff called a press conference. Microphones lined up in front of the town hall and cameras flashed as the truth came pouring out. "Thanks to the bravery of one young girl, Ayla Johnson," the sheriff announced, "we uncovered and shut down an illegal dog trafficking ring that had operated undetected for nearly 2 years. Ayla and her mom stood off to the side. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. The town had already given her a new name, the girl who wouldn't give up. Tears flowed freely in Pineville that week, not just sadness over the abuse discovered, but tears of pride, hope, and relief. Volunteers from surrounding counties came to help rehome the rescued animals. Donations poured in for the animal clinic and local shelters. Ayla visited the dogs every day, offering them the same gentleness she had given Rusty. One by one, they began to trust again. Then came the biggest shock of all. The woman who had claimed Rusty as her stolen pup, Mrs. Carlyle, came to Pineville to meet Ayla and the dog she thought she'd lost forever. Her story was heartbreaking. Rusty had been taken from her yard in the dead of night, and for months she had searched with no answers. But when Rusty saw her, he didn't run to her. He backed into Ayla's legs, tail low, ears drooping, not out of fear but loyalty. He had chosen his person. Mrs. Carlyle knelt down, tears in her eyes. "He's yours now," she said gently. "You saved him. He knows it." That night, Ayla sat on her porch with Rusty curled beside her, watching the stars blink to life. Her town had changed. She had changed. People passed her on the street now with respect in their eyes. Kids who once ignored her now asked for her advice on how to care for animals. Teachers used her story as a lesson in courage. And the mayor? He awarded her the Pineville Medal of Honor, the youngest person in history to ever receive it. But for Ayla, the medal wasn't the most important thing. It was Rusty's wagging tail, his healed leg, his trust. She had carried him for miles, never knowing the ripple that one choice would make. Now, Pineville stood taller, kinder, stronger, because one little girl saw pain and chose compassion, because one little girl faced with fear and walked forward anyway, and because sometimes the smallest among us are the ones who change everything.